Oh,
What time did you start on Friday? Little close on that, because I dropped Taffy off in Glenwood at 7. I should be able to be back by 8.
Up there.
very cool.
So would the idea be
I get all three of them.
family?
Yeah, if we, one of them feeds like 7 people and there's like only 25 books, so. I mean, you could.
Tomorrow.
What's that?
Tomorrow is 96.
6 to 8:30.
6 to 8:30.
Yep. I appreciate it. I'm not a community man, so.
Okay.
Instead of, I'm too honest, because I know that probably makes you feel bad, but I do appreciate it.
I don't feel bad at all. I'm not a big candy fan. Actually, last meeting, though, I sort of at that.
Mhm. Derby, do we need to turn stuff on in there?
Yeah.
Because this is just me now.
And we're not on yet, are we?
It is, yes.
YouTube is started.
Well, then,
Camera's not on. That's the reason why.
Okay, so YouTube's on,
Remember. whether we had or
so I'll go back and make you host.
Oh, you haven't done that yet?
No.
Yeah.
Because I came in, so I still haven't. I'll be right back.
Okay.
thank you guys for keeping us updated on the schedule and stuff.
Schedule. I would have never thought of. So I think that.
Can you hear us now,
How
Heather?
about now?
That's much better. I can hear you now. Can you
Still
hear me?
nothing?
No, I can hear you. Can you hear me? I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Anything yet, Heather?
And I finally bought the microphone you
Oh.
recommended. I don't know if that was the right one. I know that our guys did a lot of research.
Oh, she unmuted. She
No, she's
unmuted.
unmuted.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. You can't hear me?
We could hear you now.
All right, sweet.
Well, this is a special meeting, so I'll call the meeting to order. Kathy, will you do roll call?
Marty Silverstein,
Here.
Dan Richardson,
Here?
Heather Henry,
Here,
Len Baumfock,
Here.
Lonnie Kitching,
Here.
Luis Zianes,
Here.
Erica Sparhawk.
Okay, and since it's kind of a work session, we normally don't do comments, but Marty, did you want to say something?
I did. A member of our community is leaving Carbondale after having lived here for many, many years. Carol Klein has volunteered for many things over the years. You've seen her at Mountain Fair. You've seen her at Carbondale Public Arts Commission. You've seen her at the Historic Preservation Commission. If KD&K was having something where they needed a volunteer, she was there. She has been a super volunteer, an active member of this community for many, many years. I'm sorry to see her go, but she has promised that she will come back because she has family in Carbondale still, and she has doctors in Carbondale. I ran into her at Lift Up. She is literally everywhere. And she is an example of a great Carbondale citizen. Not everyone can give money, but people can give time. And I'm sorry to see her go, but the community is richer for having been here. And I can't wait for her to come back and visit.
Thanks, Marty. All right, moving on to Garfield Clean Energy Update. We have Catherine Rushton from Clear. Thanks for joining us, Catherine.
Yeah, I'm just going to share my screen.
All right.
And-
That.
Right, well, thank you for having me here to present tonight. So I'm really here on behalf of the GCE partners and the staff at Clear, really to thank you and the town of Carbondale for your continued participation in Garfield Clean Energy, because this regional collaboration truly does let us do more work together than we could ever do as communities on our own. So you have a detailed packet with the memo that has all the highlights of our accomplishments for the year. So I'm just going to touch on a few of those highlights and then go into our largest project, the solar and storage study, in more detail so that I can answer any questions you might have from the executive summary that we included. So the Solarize program, this is a concept where you have a time limited program, you market for a certain period of time, and you encourage everybody to go solar at the same time so that then you could capture some economies of scale, provide some discount pricing, and Garfield Clean Energy was able to provide some rebates to XL customers who traditionally have not had rebates for solar. And we fully explained all the results in the memo, but here in Carbondale, we actually had 368 kilowatts installed in a short time period because of the Solarize program. I think overall in the county, it was over 800 kilowatts. So we deem that to be a very successful program.
That's like roughly twice the size of the CRMS array, right? Just like to
The
put that-
CRMS array is about 150 kilowatts.
Yeah,
So
okay.
yes.
Put that in perspective.
Yeah. And then, so in addition to, we actually did a lot of coaching through the Solarize program because everybody we spoke to and enrolled, we talked to them about efficiency measures, whether they wanted to get audits and other things that they could do. And so So we did quite a lot of coaching on those existing buildings. And then aside from that, we did a lot of design assistance with, new buildings. So this picture is of this woman who lives in Rifle. She actually contacted our office a few years ago when she first purchased her lot of land, because she knew that she wanted to design her home to be net zero. And she wanted to figure out how to push her contractor to do that with her. And so our team provided a lot of technical guidance while also really helping her articulate her wants to her builder. And then our team has also provided varying levels of guidance for quite a few multifamily projects this year. The most engagement we've had has been with a habitat project called Wapiti Commons, which is in Rifle. And so we've been attending all of their design meetings and helping them understand what their potential energy use is going to be through modeling and figuring out their best options for equipment, solar, whether it should be on-site or off-site, but they're going for a net zero project, but also they want it to be affordable. So then in the transportation sector, there's kind of two categories we work on here. There's electric vehicle promotion, and then also, obviously we encourage folks to bike and walk and ride the bus too. And so for the electric vehicle promotion this year, we really had to continue to adapt for COVID, since we couldn't really host in-person ride and drive events. We actually worked for the local videographer, Natty Olin, and she produced this video where she test drives 2 new EVs on the market and kind of talks about like how they feel and what they're like, and just kind of like that user experience. We also assisted GCE partners and local businesses who wanted to install EV chargers. We provided technical assistance and helped them put together grant applications through the Charge Ahead Colorado program. And then I also wanted to talk about Bike There. So our transportation program focused on kind of 2 key areas as it has in the past. And so Bike There was this new approach where we held events in every community, because in the past, we've done a county-wide bike program, and we've done some kind of school challenges. And we've had a lot of bike events in Carbondale, but we really felt like we weren't reaching all the other communities in Garfield County. So we did this approach where we had an event in every community over the course of several weekends in June. And then it culminated in one big event, like this expo in Glenwood on June 26th. And so, we had various levels of engagement depending on the communities we were in. And it was the first time we'd done it. We certainly learned a lot, and we're going to be adapting this program and try it again in 2022. So now I'm going to talk about the renewable energy planning grant that we received with funding from DOLA and matches from our 3 counties, and then a lot of support and funding also from Garfield Clean Energy. So there were several interrelated components to the project scope. The main one being the study that also included a regional energy inventory and an action plan. So resources were gathered to provide information on solar project development, also in a web-based toolbox, which is online on a website. And then we also worked with multiple jurisdictions to assess their permitting processes. And then finally, we made a high-level assessment of the role that non-renewable energy industry plays in the regional economy. So those were kind of like the 5 pieces of the scope. And, one of the main drivers for taking on this ambitious scope was really to understand how our region could help meet the state goal of 100% renewable electricity by 2040. And so in thinking about that and what we could do regionally, that kind of led us to this series of 6 questions that we then went ahead, researched, and tried to answer in this study. So those things are, well, first of all, how much electricity are we using? If we're going to get to 100%, we need to know what that looks like. And then how much of that electricity consumption can we meet by regional solar development? And by that, we mean, on rooftops, and also with community scale systems, which are systems from 5 to 15 megawatts that are located on the distribution system, not to be confused with the utility scale system, which are the much larger projects we're seeing built, say on the Front Range or in deserts, that then, you have to like bring over on transmission lines. We wanted to explore the role that battery storage was going to play because we knew that would be crucial to be able to increase the level of renewable penetration on the grid. And then we wanted to really examine what are the benefits of really promoting rooftop solar and these assets on our distribution grid. What could that bring to our region and to our economy? We also discovered there's quite a few barriers that are standing in the way of getting to this 100% clean energy goal. And so we did put together an action plan so that we could really like think about how we're going to realize, this potential and these benefits. So the first piece was we conducted an energy inventory of all the buildings and industry across the 3 counties. We're talking about Garfield, Pitkin, and Eagle. And we found that we're using 1.86 million megawatt hours of electricity each year at a cost of $186.5 million. And we also assessed the current level of regional solar generation. And we found that there's currently 24 megawatts of small rooftop or net metered systems, and about 8 megawatts of community scale systems. And so I already explained kind of what, the difference between utility and community scale. And we wanted to understand, the unique benefits that could bring. So we used this framework of analysis that was actually developed by NREL, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. And that takes kind of the entire resource potential. So the sunlight that is hitting the ground on a daily basis. And it reduces that potential to, well, how much of that sunlight can technically be captured and then turned into electricity, taking into consideration the constraints of land use, how we want to use land, the topography of the land, the electric grid constraints, where the electric grid is in existence. And then that potential is further narrowed with the market constraints that are in place to find the market potential. And so that includes things like regulatory constraints that the utility companies are under, and also just utility policy in general. And so to take on this task, we wanted to map out all of the potential parcels that could be used for solar development. And we originally thought that we would need to talk with all the landowners that might be interested in leasing their land for solar development, and then look at all those parcels and do an assessment to see, do they fit the technical criteria, and then add the parcels to the map. That's not actually what ended up happening. We partnered with a private company, the National Land Realty, because they had already developed a tool. And so they customized their tool to create this mapping portal just for this 3-county study. And so then we were able to kind of take this much further. So the NLR was able to assess all of the parcels across the 3 counties, whether there was interest in leasing it or not. Every single parcel that was suitable for solar development was identified. So we identified over 700 suitable parcels, including parcels in Pitkin and Eagle County, which, we'd had this perception that there's really not a lot of land that's suitable there because of the topography. But actually there are quite a few parcels. And then NLR actually took the next step of contacting every landowner to see if they would be interested in leasing their land for solar. And so you can see in this screenshot, all of those parcels that are in green represent landowners that have said, yes, if there's an opportunity to lease my parcel, I would like to talk to a solar developer about that. And so, this resulting map has actually proven to be much more useful for our regional plan. And it can be used by local planning departments, the utility companies themselves, because you can actually see the utility grid and think about like where you want to place resources in terms of like balancing it where your demand is. And then also solar developers, it really takes away the additional step of having to go source land and talk to landowners. So this map is accessed by requesting a user login. And so we have that also on the Clean Energy Network website.
So Catherine, does that 232 megawatts, is that purple or green?
So what you're seeing in the parcels there, those are land parcels.
Right,
So
but
those,
is the market potential what is possible or those who said yes?
so the market potential is in megawatts, and what you can see on that map is acres of land, right? And so I can't say that, purple's this and green's that, because that's acres of land. So all of those parcels that we identified, that 722 parcels, I don't have the acreage on there. But then you have to go, okay, of all those parcels that are feasible, how many then could we actually connect to the utility grid? Because if you've got 3 parcels next to each other, but they have the one feeder line that can only have a maximum of 15 megawatts, you can't say, well, we can build, 30 megawatts here. You're going to be constrained. So there's a lot that went into that market potential number that doesn't necessarily correlate with those parcels on the map.
Okay, thank you.
So we established there's actually a technical potential of 431 megawatts, which is more in relation to, the parcels identified. The technical potential actually is like how much you could put on the grid, but then the market potential, it really takes into consideration more of these regulatory and policy constraints. So we found that we could potentially produce 232 megawatts of community scale solar. That represents 23% of our total energy consumption in the region. So it might not seem like very much, but if we back up a minute to the inventory where we identified that we have 24 megawatts of net metered, that doesn't show up in our energy use numbers because it's net metered. So the actual solar that's going onto the grid that's offsetting our energy use number right now is only 1%. So this would take us from 1% to 23%. So I think in those terms, it looks like a much, more, it looks like a better picture.
Catherine, I might just ask a detail there too. So when you said net metered systems that are currently
Yeah.
on the grid, they're not even reflected in that 1%. Is that right? Because they're sort of ghosted out there, like they're just using their energy and not getting.
Right, but the energy being used is also not reflected in that big energy inventory number of we use 186 million megawatt hours, right? We're using less energy because some of it's being produced by those 24 megawatts of solar. So those net meter systems are playing a really important role, and we need more of those to help reduce that, that number of how much energy we're using, on the grid. It's not that the grid isn't interacting with those, it's just it doesn't show up in the numbers because, our energy use is based on how much electricity was sold. And if you've got a net metered solar system, you're not buying the electricity. Does that make sense?
It does. It's just good to remember because when we see something like we've only got 1% solar on the grid now, I think our experience is like, oh no, it's got to be higher than that. But
Yeah. And of course, our utility companies, they have other resources, these utility scale resources. And so our utilities are at like between 35 and 45%, depending on the utility, renewable energy on the grid. And we're looking at like, how do you add to that? So yeah, it's not that we're saying we can only get to 23%. It's just, this is a piece of the puzzle in the entire puzzle of how do you get to 100%? Okay, so having established that current conditions, where we stand now with our market, we could develop potentially 232 megawatts of community scale solar in our 3-county region. We then did some analysis on how could that development positively impact our regional economy. And so we looked at like several different sources of revenue. So there's direct spending on goods and services that come to our, our local economy from just building these projects. The local capture from a project could be as much as 20% of the entire project cost. Then we also looked at, project operation. And so all of these projects, we assumed a 30-year project life cycle. So over those 30 years, we could also, if we have local companies doing operations and maintenance, that could generate, potentially over $37 million. We also looked at the income to local governments from property tax revenues from these projects, as well as land lease revenue that would be paid to local landowners. Then we had an economist do some analysis on potential for energy savings and job creation. Potentially we could realize some energy savings that would actually put money back in people's pockets. And also there would be job creation. And so it's important to realize that these are not necessarily jobs directly in solar. It's not just jobs like building these solar arrays. It's how does that money circulate in the economy, grow the economy that then creates jobs, you know, in a juiced effect. And then there's also additional benefits that we didn't necessarily quantify, but we know bring value. So for example, you know, the avoided cost to utility companies and not having to build infrastructure when you're providing, you know, energy nearer the source of where it's being used. There's the value of the energy resilience that can be provided by solar when it's paired with battery storage, should other grid infrastructure be impacted, say, by wildfires. Yeah, so we identified a lot of benefits. We also identified a whole series of issues and barriers that are impacting the region and really the entire Mountain West when it comes to trying to reach the 100% clean energy supply goal. And some of these issues really need to be tackled at the state and federal level. And so those ideas are included in the action plan. And I do think as local governments, we can certainly lend our voices to some of those conversations. So then the action plan itself, it's divided into 8 major categories. There's 35 suggested actions for a diverse group of organizations, from governmental to educational, economic development organizations, and then, you know, energy collaboratives like Garfield Clean Energy. The high level overview really identifies actions related to policy changes, the need to build capacity in the workforce to fully realize these regional benefits, and then to do it in ways that are equitable and provide financial benefit to the members of our communities and the members that need it the most. And this is also related to the need to create a low-cost funding pool and consider how solar development can really help to build wealth within the community rather than have it be outside investors that then take the profits outside the community. So we've already initiated the first steps to realizing this development potential by providing resources specific to local governments and to landowners. So for example, and this is on the website, you know, for local governments, we have a lot of information about solar land use permitting, procurement for local governments, planning tools. And then for landowners, we provide a lot of information around, you know, is your property suitable for solar development? What might it be worth? What to expect during the development process if you're working with a solar developer. And we've also, obviously, we have links to the study, the mapping tool that can be used by solar developers and the planning departments and the local utilities. And then another part of the scope was to work with local jurisdictions to remove unnecessary barriers to solar permitting. That's provided further benefit to the communities, both to consumers by reducing costs, but also to the local agencies themselves by improving efficiency in their processes. So the jurisdictions we worked with, they were all free to engage in this process in whatever way really suited them. And so we have jurisdictions at different stages. 3 have already achieved a Soul Smart designation, including Carbondale. 3 more are close to completion. Others are still at beginning stages. And one of our communities, they did all of the steps to streamline their permitting process, but didn't apply for designation because they didn't want one. So. And then the final component of the project that we're going to talk about is the economic transition assessment. So the purpose of this initial assessment was to better understand the current role that the oil and gas industry is playing in the region's economy, and just really grasp the scale of the local public revenue that is derived from the industry. and then place renewable energy development as an economic diversification tool within that context. So the solar and storage study and the draft economic transition assessments are just kind of like the first steps to build an understanding of the challenges and the opportunities that are going to be, that are associated with meeting these statewide goals of achieving 100% renewable energy by 2040. Especially in communities like Garfield County, where oil and gas industry does play a large role in the economy and in the tax base. So oil and gas production's not evenly distributed across the region, as you know. It's really very centered in Garfield County. And you can see from the graph that activity is actually declining over time. But despite this decline, it's still playing an important role. I guess 2019, the industry was supporting 542 high-paying jobs and at least providing at least 77 million in local public revenue. So, you know, these numbers kind of indicate that as we transition to clean energy in the region across the state more broadly, there's going to be some fairly large economic gaps that will need to be replaced if we want to continue to provide ample, you know, public services, such as public safety and education. And so we really see that solutions to this should be probably collaboratively developed across multiple levels of government. But we envision that this regional solar plan can be an instrumental part of the solution, but it won't be the entire solution. So that really sums up the solar and storage study and the entire DOLA planning grant. And you're welcome to ask any other questions about that. But just to really kind of wrap up the Garfield Clean Energy presentation, I wanted to talk about the 2022 work plan. So along with the regular programming that we've always delivered, which is, you know, the energy coaching and the services, the design assistance, the 2022 work plan will also focus very much on low and middle income family programs and services. Garfield County are providing an additional $150,000 this year that will be targeted towards, will be for a rebate pool that will be targeted towards LMI families. So we're currently, as a Garfield Clean Energy Board, talking about programming to be able to distribute that money and make efficiency and carbon emission reductions. So these are the ideas. We can provide, you know, rebates for efficiency measures. We want to be able to promote the electrical vehicle rebates through Excel, which are very much targeted at low to middle income households. And then just what are the opportunities for solar and really increase access. We did find with the Solarize program that it was definitely the wealthier parts of the county that were able to take advantage of that program. So if we were to run a Solarize program again, we'd really want to consider how to change the program so that we could access more low to middle income households. Obviously, you know, having done all this work on the solar and storage action plan, a big part of our 2022 work plan is really moving towards implementation of the ideas in the action plan. And then strengthening the Garfield Clean Energy structure is really about adding affiliate members. We do have Holy Cross Energy going to be joining Garfield Clean Energy as a non-voting member. And so I think the GC board are interested in considering other organizations that may want to join to really just kind of like strengthen our numbers. Yeah. So that's it. That's all I have for you today.
Thank you, Catherine. That was really impressive. Not only the accomplishments, but the data supporting it. It was a pretty robust study, it seemed like. So it was exciting to see. Just a couple questions. I'm not seeing any hands up, so I'll go first. On the work plan, this by now, but with Garfield Clean Energy, you guys agree to a work plan region-wide, right? It's not like you customize it to communities. This is what we're going to do for everybody Oh, yeah,
That's
right.
exactly right.
Yeah.
So, we have all these member organizations, everybody has a seat at the table. We work together to figure out, what do we want to provide for programming, and then it's available to all the communities in Garfield County.
Great, okay. And then given the study you just did, do you anticipate there'll be money from the state specifically to implement or to act on your findings? Or was this a one and done, now you guys are on your own to make it happen?
So that is pretty much the stage we're at right now,
Okay.
is we are now taking the action plan and the ideas in there and thinking about, okay, let's formulate that into a work plan and then identify money that could help support, funding that work. So, obviously there's different funding streams from different state agencies. DOLA have the Renewable Energy Challenge Grant, so that's still on the table, potentially for implementation projects. There is also, I think, money for, workforce development and capacity building around workforce, maybe through OEDIT. And so there's definitely different funding streams, different state agencies. And so that's where we're at now, is really to put together these work plans and really think about funding.
Okay, and then my last question was, in the packet, there was lots of action plan items listed. And I started thinking, okay, we can do that. And then there were so many of them, I just kind of lost track. Is that something that either GCE or CLEAR will put in front of the town of Carbondale to say, we'd like you to focus on this?
Yeah, I think that's probably like the next thing to do with the action plan, is to, obviously the information is presented as, here's the entire thing, but it makes a lot of sense to kind of pull out the pieces that local governments can really take action on. And so I think that, we will do that for our GC partners, yes.
Great, thank you. Kevin?
Heather had her hand up.
Oh, thank you. Heather?
I think Dan kind of asked my questions, but I guess I would keep going. So, Catherine, that work plan, would that include like moving forward, say that land assessment, larger projects, and then also something like deciding whether Solarize can move forward again? Is that work plan really kind of grabbing from all of these pieces that we just saw to begin to move those forward?
You're talking about the overall Garfield Clean Energy Work Plan?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that, there's probably two major components. Well, there's three. It's on there. So there's three major components, right? So there is the, what do we want to do for low to middle income families? We really want to consider equity and increasing, equal access to the benefits of energy efficiency and rooftop solar. And so there's that piece that we have to formulate, so we just heard from the county, it's been like a few weeks, that we're going to have this $150,000 rebate pool. That's very new for Garfield Clean Energy. It's very exciting. So we've got to figure out, what does that programming look like? How do we distribute that money and get the best bang for the buck in carbon emission reductions? And then also GCE project but kind of a second, work plan is really around, hey, we've done all this great work now. We know we could realize a lot of benefits if we were to, help create this 232 megawatts, or at least start on that. What does that look like? Which pieces of the action plan do we want to identify as high priority and work on first and start moving those forward? And then the third piece was really about strengthening the Garfield Clean Energy structure by maybe expanding it to include new affiliate members. Does that answer the question? I don't know
Yes.
where to look.
Thank
She's on
you.
my screen.
Camera's behind you, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just talk from the ether. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I would just add, thanks, Catherine, for a really nice packet of information, as well as a really nice presentation. I've gotten to know GCE over the past year and a half to 2 years since Lonnie handed off the liaison role to me, and we switched things around. And honestly, it took me a while to get my head around, what does GCE do that's different from what CLEAR does, and is different from what CORE does, and is serving us, and we're paying a membership fee and all that. But the way I see GCE now is that I think we've all seen issues, whether it's housing or anything, where if it doesn't have a champion who's constantly relentlessly working on that issue and a staff to actually dedicate time and not just volunteer on the side, stuff doesn't get done. And so that's what I feel like GCE provides for us in the county and in the region, is that kind of relentless champion with staff and time and expertise. So it's so interesting for me to hear Catherine talk about, we advised on this project and we advised on that project and these people pulled us in. And if they weren't doing that, there wouldn't be anybody, I don't think, sort of in that role, just with clean energy in mind. And I've also found it really interesting and powerful to go to those GCE board meetings and see, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's about the only organization where there's a representative from all the jurisdictions within Garfield County, right? Like RAFTA overlaps some of that, but not all the way. And it's productive, right? It's relationship building and it's trust building. And it's seeing that even though part of the county relies on oil and gas a lot, still we can talk about these kinds of things and we can try to look kind of to the future together. So I've just appreciated getting to know GCE's work better. And I think that this solar plus storage map and action plan is an example of the kind of work that if GCE didn't do it, nobody would. So at first it took me a little while. It's like, where are the big projects? Why aren't we out there building arrays? And that's not really GCE's role, but it's laying the groundwork and it's creating an environment in which we can make the clean energy transition and kind of helping remove barriers and provide assistance along the way. So I just appreciate the partnership, and it's been a really interesting couple of years.
And just one more thing though, I mean, I do think we are helping to build those big projects, so the Colorado Mountain College Spring Valley project, 5 megawatts, which is about to break ground, plus storage. GC played a huge role in making that happen by being able to listen to what are the goals of the college and then understand what are the goals of the utility and what they're trying to achieve and bring them both to the table and actually create a new structure and a new way to operate together that met both those goals and resulted in this really exciting big project in our county. So it really does have those tangible results. It's not all planning, there is action and implementation too.
Great, thanks for that.
Maybe I'll close with putting this into perspective. Am I correct? Am I remembering Holy Cross's goals correctly? That they anticipate being 100% renewable by 2030, but that relies on 20% of their solar coming from net metered projects. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Okay.
I know that they are hoping to be at 70% within the next couple of years, and that they have, contracts in place to get them there, whether it's buying energy from a large wind farm on the Front Range. Also, I think they have another 30 megawatts of contracts in negotiation for regional community scale solar that would, contribute to that 232 megawatt goal. How much of that will be net metered, I don't know. I think that they still are saying that they are willing to do around 2 megawatts of net metered solar every year. But I do think that, Holy Cross are definitely talking about solar plus storage, just because, to get to that 100%, that last 20%, we really need to be able to balance that supply and demand on the grid.
Regardless of the numbers, it's kind of close. And I feel like what that study does is sort of frame what us as individual electricity users, these are our marching orders. We can't just sit back and allow Holy Cross to do it all for us or Excel in my case. So it, like I said, that to me, in reviewing this, it sort of frames what our personal tasks are. So, but great work. Thank you for all that you guys are doing, and please pass along to the other jurisdictions that we appreciate it and look forward to 2022.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you.
All right. Looks like we have the school district here, our school district campaign members here.
Ready for us?
Yes.
And I'm going to recuse myself from this one because I work for the school district and stand to benefit financially if this passes. So
Thank you.
I'll step out. My wife does too.
I'm Rob Stein. I'm the superintendent of the Roaring Fork Schools. Before we begin, I'd just like to say to the town, I would just express appreciation and gratitude for the partnership, the ongoing partnership we have with this between the school district and the town. You know, and I think about all the issues on which we work together: town planning, mitigating vaping and tobacco use, or tobacco and marijuana use by our kids, increasing mental health services for youth, crisis response, law enforcement. And that's one of the great things about living in this valley and working in our school district, is really having these really vital partnerships with Carbondale and the other municipalities. I'm here tonight as a private citizen, though obviously, unlike Ben, I do not stand to benefit from this personally. There will be no financial gain to me, but I can see nothing more important for the school district than yes on 5B, approving the mill levy override that's on the ballot for this November's election. I'm going to kind of outline just the brass tacks, and then I have some friends, colleagues also here on their own time as volunteers tonight, not as employees of the school district, to just represent some different perspectives. The crux of our challenge is that according to the sort of arcane state school finance acts, our school district is funded in the bottom third of school districts in the state of Colorado, whereas the Roaring Fork School District is the third highest cost of living school district in the state. And so that's the gap that we just are struggling to close. We're at the bottom third in school funding, and we're at the very top in terms of cost of living in our school district. We actually pay 37th out of 178 school districts in the state in terms of our teacher salaries. What that evidence is that we make a lot of effort to force all of our resources into teacher and staff salaries. And so you may hear like there's other waste, there's other inefficiencies. All of our available dollars and more are going to salaries. At the same time, we want to maintain a robust complement of programs: arts, music, physical education, and other smaller class sizes. Those commitments that we've maintained over time and that make it a great place to send our kids to school. We've reached a crisis point where we're increasingly seeing more and more staff attrition, difficulty filling teaching and staff positions. We have buses driving double routes because we don't have enough drivers, so kids are waiting after school for an hour to be picked up. Our classes are going without guest teachers, substitute teachers, and so teachers are having to double up. When we don't have a guest teacher, that means that, you know, either another teacher has to surrender planning time, or we have to put two classes together in one. So it's starting to undermine the quality of the programming we really want to offer. State school finance law also gives us one local mechanism to address this financial challenge, which is a mill levy override, a local voter approved real estate tax that would, according to state statute, would allow, we can go for up to 25% above what the state gives us in per pupil funding for a local tax. Past elections in the Roaring Fork schools have given us about half of that. So there's a remaining amount of dollars on the table, $7.7 million, that we could request from our local voters in the form of a mill levy override that would all go to teacher and staff salaries and other recruitment and retention efforts. So that's really our best hope, and that's what we're asking your support for. That's sort of the brass tacks mechanics of the mill levy override. Maybe some other folks could share some different perspectives, and we're all happy to answer questions. We don't have a batting order, so maybe we should just go down the line.
I thought you were doing those. I can go. Hi, my name is Daisy Fogelsong. I've been a teacher here in Carbondale at the elementary school for 22 years. And I can echo the seriousness of the attrition that we're seeing growing. And just the fact that I have a lot of colleagues who have moved to other states. I am Michigan, Virginia, North Carolina, and it kind of goes on and on. But the overarching reason that I see people leaving that isn't related to retirement is this gap that has just grown and grown. I'm fortunate enough to have lived here for 22 years and was able to move here and be a first-year teacher and actually be able to purchase a home in Carbondale on a first-year teacher's salary. And that's, I think, not a possibility at this point in time. So the gap is growing and growing, and the attrition is just getting to be like more severe. And I guess on top of that, attrition, just based on the financial aspect of being able to move to this valley, is other people who are in my boat where I've worked here 22 years. I'm kind of closing in on, oh, I may be able to retire in the next 5 or 10 years. And a lot of my friends are in that same position. And I kind of just tried to count off before I came in here, how many in my building are in that role. And, you know, I can think of 10 people who are probably in the next 5 or 10 years going to retire. And they're all people who do own their homes here and have lived here for 20 years. And I really worry about how are we going to kind of both close the gap for people who want to move here like right now, and then in 5 to 10 years when we lose another 10 to 15 teachers in my building, just because we've kind of served our community as a teacher and had the benefit of having a great job here in Carbondale, but we're done. And so we're not going to just turn our house over to the new person. And so we do have a few other little things that keep people coming for maybe the 3 to 5 years with our rental programs that we have in the district and whatnot. But I don't think without a financial boost, we're going to be able to close that gap at all. I guess the other thing I think about is the false narrative that I've heard a little bit in the community, maybe mostly coming, I don't know if it's mostly related to the mill levy override or somewhat with the school board elections, but there's a narrative that maybe our district is heavily funded at the top or mismanaged with our budget. And I've served on a committee that works with how do we allocate money for salaries and benefits and spending in the district from the perspective of a teacher. And that committee is made up of teachers, school board members, and administration. And I've dug through our budget many times, and there's no extra money. School districts don't waste money. And from the top down to the teachers, down to the custodial staff, we're always all trying to make the most with what we have. And the vast majority of our budget already goes to salaries. So there's no way to say, oh, let's just cut the fat and pay the teachers. It's not a possibility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Amy Brockman. I'm the principal at Crystal River Elementary School. I have the privilege of working with Daisy each day. I've worked for the school district since 2003, and in Carbondale schools, Crystal River Elementary, Carbondale Middle, and Roaring Fork High School for the past 10 years. And as a school leader, I spend a lot of time in teachers' classrooms. And I want to start just by saying that these are highly educated, highly trained professionals, that the job is much more complex than it was, I think, when I was a student myself. So I'm talking about teachers who teach high school physics and English to students who are new to the country simultaneously. I'm also talking about kindergarten teachers who are working with young learners who didn't attend preschool, didn't socialize the way 5-year-olds normally do, and are meeting all of those needs. So I just want to tell you about one teacher at my school, a first grade teacher, 4th year in our district. Just incredible. Such a calm classroom atmosphere, a productive buzz when students are learning together. Teacher who simultaneously teaches content and social emotional skills like self-control and cooperation in a way that I find remarkable. This teacher has moved 7 times in the 4 years that she's moved here. Not because she wants a bigger place or a better home, but because she rents and people want to sell. So in the spring, she was trying to figure out housing. She's married to a Carbondale firefighter and was also looking for jobs on the Front Range because she just didn't know if she was going to be able to make it work. And she did for now, but for her and for teachers like her, I'm asking for your support of the mill levy. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Hi, I'm Kendall Riley. I'm currently the assistant principal at CRES, so I get to work with both Daisy and Amy. This is my first year out of the classroom, and I started as a first year teacher in RFSD in the fall of 2014. So I was a year 1, step 1 teacher, which came in with no experience because I had been an educator at Rock Bottom Ranch for ACES for a couple of years. And that means I started at the very bottom of our salary schedule. It's the top left, but it's the bottom. And I was making $35,000 a year. So after taxes, that was $2,100 a month. I was able to make it work because I'd been in this valley for a couple of years. So I had connections and had people who were willing to rent to me for less than market rate, way less than market rate. And I had family who could support me if I had needed like 2 root canals in a month, which might have happened. So I was able to make it work because of that. It wasn't easy to make it work. I was working, I did wedding planning on the weekends. I skied around in snowmats in a Cliff Bar costume 1 weekend a month. That was a fun one. I moved bikes around Aspen for Recycle. I babysat. I did pretty much every odd job you could think of. And that was all time that as a first year teacher, I wasn't able to spend getting ready for the next week and figuring out what exactly I was doing in my classroom. We shouldn't have to have family help and connections in the Valley to be able to make it here as a teacher. And we need to be able to help teachers make it, especially in their first couple of years, without having to work every weekend and every afternoon. I'm really proud of the work the district has done around that, both with our budget, and then I was part of the group that worked on the housing committee, and our apartments right by Bridges are really awesome, and there is a long line of people to get into them. But we've done all we can. And when I was thinking about what I was going to say tonight, I went back and looked at something I'd written in support of Amendment 73 3 or 4 years ago, which didn't pass. And so we've tried statewide a number of different things, and we need our community to help us as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michael Logan, and I have been a teacher in the district for a long time, about 18 years. But for the past 4 years, my role has been to train incoming teachers, new teachers to the district. And in 2018, I got my first cohort of new secondary teachers, and I worked very closely with 12 of those teachers. They were first-year teachers. They came to us with tons of energy, and they poured their heart and soul into the job. And this year, 4 years later, 3 of those teachers work for our district. And that's a pretty common rate of turnover, and it's unsustainable. There are some secondary costs to that rate of turnover. Folks like Amy and Kendall and people who can sort of stick it out end up being a minority who we then have to draw upon for myriad reasons, helping support all these young teachers, fulfilling all kinds of roles that in a small district that we need them for. And the combination of that turnover and then the demands on those teachers who stick around is just simply unsustainable. Have any of you guys worked as classroom teachers before? A little bit? I just want to also sort of try to impress upon you the quality of being a classroom teacher. There's a madness that goes with it. I don't know of another profession where your literal sleeve is tugged on every second and you're making an important decision. I think there's statistics about this. You're making an important decision literally like every 30 seconds, an important decision. And to me, it's vital that we pay teachers who are doing this incredibly demanding work a livable wage. And the last thing I want to say is that it was vital 3 years ago. It was absolutely vital. But right now we're at a breaking point. Where the pandemic has left us is, this extreme labor shortage, and teachers are being asked, like Rob said, to sub for each other. And it's not good for kids. Teachers don't have the time they need to be doing the work they need to do. And if we pay them a livable wage, we can recruit the talent that we need and sustain them over a long period of time, hopefully, to be in the work for the duration of their career, which is what we need. We can't keep sending them back to the Front Range or to other places. So thanks for considering 5B.
Anybody have questions? We'd be happy to.
Thank you. Marty?
Yeah, Rob, I'm going to direct this one to you. First off, where does our school funding come from?
The vast majority comes from the state of Colorado.
Is
It comes from our
property
local.
taxes or?
Well, that's complicated because according to the state school finance mechanism, it comes from a combination of local share, which are property taxes, and state share, which is the combined general dollars in the state fund, which some of which is probably property taxes too, but you're asking a superintendent a school finance question that I'm not gonna be able to answer. Our expert here might be able to give you more because she's done a lot of research on this.
Well, the reason why I asked,
I've been incomplete, but I hope I haven't been inaccurate so far.
good job,
All
ducking,
property
Ron.
taxes are local in the state and all income taxes are statewide.
Okay, but where does the funding for the, I come from back east. Back east, our property taxes are very high. But our property taxes go to support our local school district. And that isn't what I see happening here.
That's
So most of your property taxes, or we are funded by property taxes and then by the general fund. And that's why Colorado is so low in funding, because our state budget is so low, because our tax burden is so low.
And this goes back to Tabor, right?
Yep.
Okay. I have one or two comments I want to make. First of all, no one goes into teaching for money. We know that. You do it because you have a passion to do it. No one has gone rich being a teacher. Rich in spirit, maybe, but not rich financially. It is embarrassing. And it's not just a question for teachers. Anyone who wants to run for trustee, there are going to be openings. Because this is being grappled with our municipal employees, with our police force, with everything. In the city market, I assume we all shop at city market. It's the only game in town. They're down 30% from where their staffing should be. And of course, it comes down to money. I would see this turnover when I worked at the post office. Every May, June, we'd have young men and women in their 20s who came here to teach. And after 3-4 years, they came to the conclusion that they couldn't make it in the valley, or they'd never be able to afford to buy a house. You know, the teacher rental units addressed part of that problem. I don't know what the answer is. And I guess my other question for you, Rob, is assuming 5B passes, okay, you get that other 12.5% of that 25% override. What happens next? This problem isn't going away.
That's correct. For one thing, there needs to be a statewide solution, but this is a significant difference for us. I mean, we set a goal of being in the top third of our comparison school districts. We were in the bottom third in 2019 when we set that goal. So this will be a significant difference, you know, but is it the fix all? No. As you're mentioning our housing, we now have a housing program which can build on itself. And so we have a goal of adding another 100 units. And we're working now on those first 50 over the next couple of years, because housing seems to be the biggest, you know, cost of living differentiator between this valley and say the Front Range. So you're right. It isn't the global solution, but I don't want to understate how important this will be for our staff and for our school district, and therefore our kids over the next several years.
Thank you.
Rob, while you're there, I assume that there's the flexibility to tier the wages. To Kendall's point about you know, focusing them on the lower wage jobs and reducing that. Is that true?
Yep, we have a few goals. First is, I think, what I alluded to, that we want to be competitive. So we want to be in the top third of comparison groups for all of our employee groups. You know, it isn't just teachers, it's bus drivers, food service workers. And so there are different marketplaces, and we want to be in the top third in those marketplaces. It's not going to be the solution, but it's going to be a huge help. A second goal is really equity. And so we want to make sure that we bring up the bottom more. Like, we have to bring up, you know, all of our wages to a living wage if possible. And so that means focusing on not just our low teaching wages, but those other, like, employee groups that I just mentioned, for example. You know, we have to help those folks be able to, you know, take and keep jobs in our schools as well.
Okay.
And then third, which is sort of incidental to you all, but important to these folks, is that due to the economic crisis with the pandemic and the state budget freeze in 2020, people have, you know, lost wages over the past couple of years. And so we want to like backfill that gap as a goal if we get 5B as well, so that people haven't lost the time of the past 2 years.
Thank you. Any other questions of our guests? Okay. So the request tonight is for us to endorse 5B. Marty pointed out that we haven't done this yet since we've all been seated here. But I certainly think, I certainly support the idea of us endorsing it. I appreciate the work that's gone into the campaign and bringing the information to the voters. And I have to say, I think it's about as compelling a case as I've ever seen on a ballot initiative with the data. So I think it's worth supporting. So,
I have one other question.
sure.
What's the cost per 100,000 for residential and for commercial?
Residential is $3.62.
Is
And
that per
I'm
month or
per month, and commercial, I'm gonna have to get a cheat sheet for
14
that.
something, I
Yeah.
think?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's 14 something, but I can't remember the cents.
So roughly $200 a year on a $500,000 home. That'd be correct? Or ballpark?
Sounds right.
One other question.
Yep, go for it.
With the mill levy, will that help increase like basically starting salary for teachers, or do you know what that would increase it to?
We don't know because we use the same collaborative decision-making process that Daisy referred to. So we will take the money back to that group and we will, work collaboratively to figure out how we address multiple goals. One is bringing up the base. Like I said, another is restoring the lost wages over the past couple of years. And then we have to be competitive. So we have to look at what our other school districts are doing so that we can compete at different places in the salary scale. Certainly the starting wage, we're seeing increasingly it's impossible to recruit teachers.
Marty, my math is it would be $217 a year.
Okay, I was just giving a ballpark.
Yep.
Now you distracted me. So I'll come back to me.
Well, I would entertain a motion. If anybody would care to make one.
Actually, I just want to get back to something.
Okay.
So the problem is, and like I said, anyone who wants this job is welcome to it. The problem is we raise the salaries, okay? Especially starting teachers or in their first couple of years. They're still going to have problems. They're not going to be able to afford to live in Carbondale, right? I mean, you've lived here 22 years and you've been here since what, 18 years or so, Amy? That's how we've all been able to afford to live here.
I think it still makes it more competitive with where you would move away to in your salary. Whereas right now, you can move away to another state and make more and pay less. At least if we would have a salary that would be competitive with other states and other places in Colorado, we would have a chance at keeping people and giving people the time to figure out, like, if they could live in the rental housing for 5 years and during that time, try to figure out how to stay in this valley because people want to. But when we're also battling being severely underpaid, even competitively with other teachers, because you can talk to teachers across the country, it's not just a Colorado crisis attracting people to the profession. But some people come to it and want to do it.
Well, I think I was hearing Ben's comment about clean energy, and we're sort of in the same boat here with some of these region-wide problems that are systemic, and housing is I think one he cited as an example right next to clean energy. And so we all have to work together on those things. There's no question that we have other community issues that this mill levy initiative will not solve. It's going to go a long way toward helping us. We've also identified housing as the other, high priority project in order to be able to retain and attract staff. And we're working on that.
Marty, I try to recruit classified employees.
Amy, could you step up so
for
we can get you on the mic?
Oh, sure. I try to recruit classified positions at my school, teacher aides, school secretaries at a rate of about $14 an hour. And you could work fast food for more.
Oh, I get it. I see what Wendy's is paying.
It would make wages more competitive and it would make us more able to recruit people.
And I commend you all, because like I said, no one goes into education to make money. And most teachers who I had growing up, most teachers I've known, some of my family have all worked second jobs. Some have worked third jobs. So We know you do it because you have a passion to do it.
I agree with that. I also think it's tricky, painting teachers as martyrs when they are highly trained professionals, and none of us are here asking for you to help us become rich as
No.
teachers.
And I don't think you're martyrs. Like I said, I think you have a passion for what you do.
Luis?
I'll make a motion. I'll move to approve an endorsement of the Roaring Fork Mill levy override on 5B.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and just for what it's worth, Erica couldn't join us tonight, but she also supports this. All those motion by Luis, seconded by Lonnie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
All right. Do we need a break or should we keep going on the budget?
We're on the budget roll. The police
Okay.
chief is here.
Okay.
And because there's shortage of staff, we need to get them back to work as soon as possible.
Yeah. Welcome, Chief Wilson.
Hello, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Living a dream.
At least you said a dream, not a nightmare.
Sometimes it is a nightmare, but it's still a dream. Well, I'm not wrong.
All right. Well, welcome back, Ben. Lost Heather. Well. All right, so we are on to department priorities, and the first one up tonight is our police department. So take it away, Chief Wilson.
So I really didn't prepare a whole lot. I was told to come in here and be prepared to answer some questions and talk about some increases. So really, I'll follow your direction. Are there any questions as far as the budget that need answers?
Great, thank you for going about it that way. I'm looking at a different packet than I read, so I don't have my notes. So I'm quickly scanning again. Any questions of Chief Wilson?
I wondered if you wanted to expand a little bit on you started off by mentioning the 29 pillars recommended by President Obama's task force on 21st century policing. I don't expect you to go into every detail, but you said that you're working on or already employing 20 of those. Maybe just any highlights of things that you would consider sort of noticeable changes that are due to those, like things where we don't just say, oh yeah, we already do all that, but things where we say, yeah, we need to do some work here.
Can I also interrupt 1 second? Yes, sir. Next week, we'll also be having a discussion about community policing. And I had to remind myself that this one's focused on budget and next week we'll get into details.
Thank you. Well, with that, then maybe I'll reframe the question and say, does any of that work impact the budget? Are there any things related to that became budget priorities?
There are quite a few. The majority are going to be in training, obviously, which I think has been attacked pretty heavily by the police department to refocus and reframe what our priorities are for the department. Recruitment is certainly one. Retention, without a doubt, is part of that as well. Officer wellness is actually one of the pillars towards the end. And so just making sure that department members feel supported, that they are getting the right training, that they, very similar to the last discussion, are able to live in or near the community that they serve is huge. And that's one of the pillars that I think will probably fall short on for a while until the housing issue is truly attacked, addressed incredibly well. Outside of that, I think for the most part, it's just changing the culture of the department, which that's been underway for quite a while.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate that kind of high level overview, and I think the training definitely seems like a logical place to focus.
Can I add something real quick? Yep. To that, just in case you don't have a copy or remember the budget from last week. You're looking at a $50,000 budget for travel and conferences. And that compares to like the 2019, 2020 actuals that were around 30,000. So I think that speaks to the increased focus on that in this proposed budget.
Thank you. Marty?
Yeah, Chief, I guess this is a G-part question. How far do you think we've come on our bilingual efforts? And what improvements do you see us making in the forthcoming year with this budget?
That's a fantastic question. So I have done my best to match when we lose a bilingual officer to replace with a bilingual officer or someone that we can train that is bilingual. The difficulty is the hiring pool is getting smaller and smaller. And I certainly don't want to sound like we're hiring people that can fog a mirror and that's their only qualification. That is not the case whatsoever. However, bilingual is becoming a rarity. One thing that we do not do here as far as do well is we actually don't have a pay differential for skill sets that officers come in with. And I've heard that from people that are interested in working here, have that certain skill set and are being wooed by other departments up and down the valley and across the country at this point that offer that. And that's not something that we've worked into the budget for 2022. One thing that we did work into the budget to go to a portion of your question is, so we have some quasi-bilingual officers that have conversational Spanish fairly well. Sergeant Brandon Rupp is one of those. His Spanish over the past several years, he's taken it upon himself to learn Spanish. We are incorporating I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with Meredith Casper. So she teaches Spanish. She's been teaching for the police department for several years now. So we've asked for $10,000 for her to come in and train officers over the course of the year. The difficulty with that is we are so short-staffed right now. I couldn't put on that class even if I wanted to, because a 40-hour class, I have 8 officers working 24 hours a day, 2 officers per shift. The math just doesn't add up when you incorporate court, vacation, 2 officers about to go out on FMLA. And so we need to get just some numbers up. We're not too far from it. We have a background currently that's almost completed. He passed his CVSA this afternoon. And so it looks like he'll be starting shortly here.
We have 2 in the academy.
And we have
correct?
2 in the academy, so they will graduate the second week of December. However, that's still a 3-month on-the-job process. Although one of those officers is bicultural, he is not bilingual.
Okay.
And so we are definitely struggling. We're not seeing the numbers as we had. We had about 60% of our officers were bilingual, and now we're below 50%. We're about 40%.
Well, we do have provisions where if there's an encounter with a citizen and an officer who isn't bilingual, he or she can call in and get support, correct?
Yes. So we do have officers available that answer their phone 24 hours a day. Both front office staff answer the phone quite frequently in the middle of the night as well, and they do interpretation for us.
Okay,
constantly.
and thank you. I'm glad to hear that whether it's immersion training or training through CMC, or if it's through this woman, that there are provisions for increasing
Yes.
our office's ability to communicate with our Latino population.
Just along those lines, so what I'm hearing, let's assume you could be fully staffed early in the year.
Yes.
I certainly would be willing to reprioritize our budget to provide more funding for more bilingual or Spanish speaking classes if you could use it, but it sounds like you've got a budget and it's about all you can use.
Yes, and one of the difficulties that you'll see with our budget for this year is one area that we haven't been able to spend down. I guess that's the wrong term, but we have money in currently is our training. And that's simply because we haven't been able to hire anyone that's qualified, let alone anyone that's qualified and bilingual. So sending officers to training for the past several months has been incredibly difficult.
Okay, thank you.
So can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Heather.
I guess along those lines, so Kevin gave us kind of that threshold, right, between 50,000 held in the budget now for training as compared to, I think you said 25 or 30. Chief, are there some specifics right now that, like, I almost look at this like, you know, Pavlov's hierarchy here, right? Where training and some of these things are at the top of the pyramid, and our base is real wobbly right now, right? We don't even have enough people on board that then, you know, you can get folks to the training to focus on the 29 pillars. And so, like, how much do you have right now that you're saying, I need to, in, I guess, almost an emergency kind of way, not your type of emergencies, but do you think you have directed to try and focus on recruitment? You know, are we giving recruitment bonuses? Are we giving moving bonuses? Retainage, you know, are we, every time somebody gets to one of those training, it's not just about what they completed, but, you know, a bonus to be kind of moving them along those lines for training. Like, I don't know. I between the cost of living and what's happening in the industry, I don't see people pounding down our doors to, you know, to be police officers. And I think we've got to have something that we really say we are dedicating, you know, hundreds of thousands or something to this. So I guess I'd love to hear more specifics of whether you have enough or where in the budget you're like, I got to put this much money towards making sure I can hire and retain.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the trainings at the end of this month that our department has been waiting to be put on is specifically on hiring and retention. And it's a very up-to-date, up-to-speed training, and Sergeant Kirkland will be attending that in Fort Collins. Unfortunately, all throughout the summer, it was pushed back. And so once he returns with hopefully some crucial knowledge there, we will have a better game plan as far as how do we recruit. I know that Chief Goodwin with the fire department, we've spoken a few times about a training program that will offer high school credits to students that are interested in learning about law enforcement, firefighting, and emergency management. And I am certified to teach the emergency management part. We have officers that are certified to teach some of the post credits, so the state's credits. It's just getting this, whatever this is, like a vocational kind of, let's recruit at the hometown level, getting that up and running. And I know, unfortunately, the fire district is also pretty thin as far as employees. So putting something like that together is right now in discussions, I suppose, but it's certainly not, we wouldn't be prepared to present that in the 2022-2023 school year. But it's certainly something that we are looking at because we know that if we hire someone that is homegrown, they're more likely to stay. So retention is not necessarily the issue. They're not looking to go back home. They grew up in the area. They love the area. They have resources. So they have family in the area. And that's really where I think the school district, the fire department, and the police department, and even town hall is really wanting to focus on hiring and recruitment. But again, that's a little bit further on down the road. The department does not have carrots to dangle currently as far as if an officer receives X training, they get a stipend or anything along those lines. We are working to create a pathway for promotion within the department. And that's one of the things that we'll discuss next week, as long as I'm not too long-winded. And I feel like I am getting that way right now, but what the objective is each year as an officer progresses with the department, we will have a standard of what trainings we expect them to get, and then optional trainings that they can attend, that they can become a niche officer and kind of meet a need of the department, but also to meet the greater need of the community. And if those officers that are looking to promote to a detective position, to move into a school resource officer position, to promote to sergeant, once they achieve a police officer 3 level, and they've received all of this training, then they automatically qualify for the next promotions, so that we have a succession plan essentially for our department. And that would go past sergeant to lieutenant and move further as the department grows.
Thanks. Marty?
I'll be quick and then I'll be done. First thing, aren't there certain trainings that are mandated by the state?
There are several, there are multiple trainings mandated by the state. Yes, sir.
Same way, like in other professions, you have, what do you call it? So many quote, continuing education credits you have to take.
Yes.
The second thing is just to think about with the retention and the recruiting is incentivizing as people complete their training, maybe not an increase, but a one-time stipend. Like you completed this optional training, here's a $500, bonus reward. Just again, an incentivization.
Yes.
That's a tough word. An incentive program. So to encourage them not only to complete the training, so they're more used to themselves and to the department as a whole, and it also gives them, hey dear, I passed this, we have $500, let's go out to dinner. Whatever.
That's an
That's
expensive
it.
dinner.
They could be had in this town.
All right. Well, thank you. I think, I don't want to speak for folks, but I think what I hear Heather saying is, from what I hear, our police department is most understaffed compared to our other departments. It's obviously critical that we have you staff. So time is running out, but if you have ideas to better fund recruitment.
So right now we have 2 officers that will graduate the academy in December and will immediately stop the bleed for the department. The other that is in background phase. I was just speaking with Sergeant Rupp just a few moments ago. It is our feeling that he will be starting with the department probably the second week of November. He's already a certified officer at a neighboring agency, so his training will be very, very brief. We have an offer out for another officer that will attend the January Academy. So we have people in place currently to fill the voids that we have. It's just how long until the next loss. We anticipate one before the end of the year.
Well, just think about it.
Yes,
So, okay. Thank you, Chief Wilson.
you bet. Thank you.
Welcome, Eric.
I'm definitely using the hire anyone that can fog a mirror analogy, because that's fantastic.
We don't want to hire based on that.
Right, but
They
that's a
have to
great
be
analogy.
upright though.
Upright and fog a mirror, and you're hired. I love it.
Heard that same phrase in the school district recently.
All right, Eric.
Hi, so a couple of things I want to just cover in my memo that we didn't get a chance to really talk about last time during our budget goals and objectives meeting. And part of this is, definitely driven by our new CIRSA rep who came to town and did a good cruise around town and see how our facilities were, the upkeep and maintenance of our facilities. So he found exactly what I thought he was going to find. So that's great. And we have some answers to that in the budget, which is really nice. So the Hendricks playground is one that's, received, it's not one of our oldest playgrounds. Actually, Colorado Meadows right now is our oldest playground that still needs replacement, but it's in better shape because it hasn't received a lot of solar degradation like the Hendricks one does. There's not a lot of shade at Hendricks. So it is dilapidated. It is in the budget to be replaced. So I'm pretty psyched about that. And so we're looking at working with Burke Move With Us grant. And so it brings down the cost of the actual implements, the playground equipment itself, not the installation or anything. So, but it does give us an opportunity to, get some discounted top of the line equipment out there, new equipment. What it doesn't give us is the opportunity to go to the public and say, do you like this playground, this playground, this playground, this playground? So although other, playground manufacturers do have some discounts, this is the best one I found out there. And it's a reputable company that we've used before. This is the same company that put in the miners playground replacement. And so I just, want to make sure that technique is gonna work with, with the trustees, and that's the way for us to save some money, get a project done, but with less public outreach on it. But
Eric, I'm embarrassed to admit, but which one's Colorado Meadows?
I was gonna say thing.
That's the one, yeah, right over here. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. We got a lot of parks out there.
So what you're saying is in order to reduce the cost of the project, we have to go with a particular system. And that obviously eliminates the ability to solicit feedback from the public on which system to choose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's my only concern, with these type of grants, that these manufacturers do offer, because of the timeliness of them too. They're they are saying here we'll discount this equipment, because our new stuff's coming out that's twice as expensive, and so a small municipality like ourselves, we look for those deals to get some of these projects done, and so that's kind of where we need to be just as far as cost associated to those replacement projects.
So I assume the alternative is we either do less stuff or we wait to replace this. So, yeah. And have you, I mean, you're a parent yourself, but have you asked other parents, what do you think of this? Is this a good system? So we're not just like going in blindly. You feel like there's been some feedback to say, yeah, this is a good idea.
Yes, I think so, because what we look at is we look at the elements that are in the playground itself and what age group is being satisfied by those elements. The playground at Hendricks has a 2 to 5 year old, play structure, and then a 5 to 12 year old design play structure. and with all the different, physical propensities that those satisfy. And so the new equipment that's out there actually has expanded on that. So it's going to be better equipment, more designed, with
Diverse.
yeah, exactly. And it's also, I think they got much better at having ADA access with all the transfer platforms and stuff. They really upped their game last couple of years with the ADA access to their playground equipment. I could go out and get some other, manufacturers to provide me a quote, to then take that to the public, take that to the Parks and Rec Commission, just, see what people think. That puts us maybe outside of this cycle of their grant though. So it's a timing issue also,
So Eric's asking, anybody have any problems with this approach? I don't.
No, I don't. Eric, it sounds like the existing equipment is dilapidated or well-used enough that people would be pleased with any kind of an upgrade, wouldn't you think? And yeah, I mean, I don't see any problem with taking advantage of an opportunity then to bring it in within budget. So
Okay.
I wouldn't be opposed to it.
I see Heather's hands up.
Yeah, I mean, I think Burke is probably in the top, 5 manufacturers in terms of quality and longevity. And so that doesn't concern me. And I think as long as you guys, like you were just describing, aren't compromising where you're trying to kind of fit in terms of the age group that we're serving and the diversity of play maybe between our parks. I think it's great. I think that diversity of the play is the thing to keep an eye on. Like a lot of times they're either trying to move, hey, we really want to be pushing this new, obstacle course equipment or something like that for the 5 to 12. And so we're discounting it, or, we're trying to move this other particular one that didn't sell well. So I think just making sure that we're not compromising anything. And then in terms of the long term, we're not using that avenue so much that like we lose a little bit of the diversity of play that sometimes you can get, between one manufacturer and another. But to me, I'd rather get them replaced and, stay on track with that kind of discount and that kind of pace, knowing you guys aren't compromising anything in doing that.
Great, thanks. Good feedback. Yeah.
And just to put it in perspective, we'll probably actually talk a little bit more about this next week. You're probably talking.
Microphone.
Thank you, Heather. What I was saying is just to kind of put it in perspective monetarily, you're looking at probably around a 20% savings doing it this way. So,
Yeah, not insignificant.
Yeah, without losing any quality.
right.
I mean, I have no problem with this, but my only watch out for is it seems odd that a manufacturer gives grants to buy their stuff. It seems like they're basically just putting it on sale and then doing sort of a pressure sell to say, we give you a grant if you buy our stuff. Like that seems like a really weird
It's just
marketing.
another way to get rid of last year's model.
Well, that's what I mean. So I don't want to get too excited about the concept of a grant. They're really just discounting it, right? So it's a sale. And you can take the sale item if it's the best deal out there, but I wouldn't feel any pressure to take that. I mean, it's not like when we get a FMLD grant and we need to put it to use and there's a timeline on it. I just would be cautious of that approach.
Yeah, one question. So the cost is obviously to cover both playgrounds, Meadows and Hendricks.
No, just one
Oh,
playground.
just one. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you
that's
for,
what they cost these days.
thank you for clarifying that. Okay,
Yeah, and that's with that's with shipping. It's a full quote and installation.
got it.
Demo.
So, all right, so we would prioritize Hendricks then and not Meadows?
Yeah, because of the nature of its dilapidation.
Gotcha,
its
gotcha.
State of dilapidation, yeah, so.
Thank you. Thanks for clarifying.
Yep.
Okay. What else you got, Eric?
I just wanted to talk about is, we were the fiscal agent for a GoCo grant for the Youth Art Park over here. Because of COVID, GoCo's not as strict as they used to be about the timing of the grants, the 2-year cycle of those grants. They want to see you done with that project in 2 years. So because of COVID, that's a little bit different. But if, on the paperwork I have in the contract with GoCo, this project is due, March 12th, 2022. So I'll have to just do a formal, request to extend that, because they're still, they have about 60,000 raised. It's a $150,000 project budget, so they're still a little bit shy on the fundraising side. I think they're working on it, but that might take a little bit more time to get that one in the ground. So
Okay, so that's FYI.
Love to talk about the aquatic facility master plan. An RFP went out to get a financial services advisor hired, and that's, I think, in process. You guys will probably see that next week. Is that's happening? Okay. So yeah, I'm glad that's moving forward. We talking to the in the interview process for a couple of different firms that we talked to. They all felt that our timing to get a ballot question in April 2022 was still okay. We're not we're not up against the wall yet. So I'm happy that's moving forward. Would like to talk about Red Hill, kind of the phase 2 of that project up there. Yes, Valley Land Trust did receive that GoCo resiliency grant for $55,000. We still have a trail maintenance endowment up there. We're going to put some money in the budget to kind of finish that project. So the next phase there is a picnic shade shelter, outdoor classroom space, and landscaping at the trailhead itself. So that's in the budget. That'll go out for an RFP once we get some engineering done on the design of the structure itself. But what's also happening at Red Hill, I just wanted to share with you, is there's with the use that trail system gets, the product that was given to us by our professional trail manufacturers, is not the product that we have on the ground now out there. It really received a lot of use, especially the downhill bike trail. And it was a challenging build for those guys anyways. The gradient is super steep. The talcum powder dust on Red Hill doesn't hold itself very well in place. So we've been working with Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers, and they've got a program where people can adopt a trail up there. So we've been working with their trail adopters, and which are volunteers, to put in some trail work time up there. And so what our plan there is to armor a lot of those steeper sections of the Beeline Trail, which is the bike exit off of the whole system. With that, because we've lost a lot of that trail dirt that was originally there, it became a very difficult trail to actually maneuver, even for the highly skilled bikers. I mean, if you're up biking Red Hill, you're a pretty highly skilled biker already, but it became an issue on the safety side for us to not do anything to it and just say, yeah, that's the trail. Yeah, good luck, have fun. So we've been armoring it, which is just a technique where you take a steep part of the trail section that's non-sustainable because it's a braking section, and when they break, all that dirt's just gonna go in, and the next thing you know, you get this sculpted deep rut in that super dry dirt. So we actually just armor it with existing rocks on site. And so that's gonna be a technique that will continue for quite a while, and that'll help it be a more sustainable trail, safer trail. But in that meantime, we opened our eyes and started looking at other trail options up there, and have found one that will help separate the trail uses, which is one of the main goals on that 25 acres on the front side, because it's such a busy hub, right, of trail users. And so this trail is going to be additional trail, and I do have that in the budget also for next year. And it'll be a biking trail that'll allow for a secondary bike exit from the trail system up there. And it'll take bikers off of the hiker trail, which is what started to happen when people were making the decision, even though it's signed to not do that. They were saying, "Ooh, that's scary. I'm going to go this way," which is down the hiker trail. So that's going to mitigate that choice that person has to make. And so that's one thing we have to do with that. It does cross over part of the BLM's land there. So we do have a NEPA process that happened there for these original trails. So we're going to do what they call a DNA with the BLM. That's a determination of NEPA adequacy. It's only about a 150 yard section of trail that actually crosses the BLM land, but we still have to go through that process. So that'll be a spring project. I just wanted to share that with you because there was a lot of kind of chatter going around, social media just about that trail system and that specifically that beeline descent and its danger. So we're going to fix it. I just wanted to share that with you guys. The other thing I just wanted to cover tonight, the electrification of the mow crew equipment. I know we were looking at a Colorado Clean Diesel program, and that's to replace one of our 60-inch Toro mower, and that didn't get in the budget this year. Hopefully this program will continue, in years to come because that piece of equipment was not scheduled for replacement until 2024. So we still have the opportunity to use that program next year. We're going to test out the electrification of our mow equipment, but our hand equipment this next year. Our gas mowers, blowers, and weed whackers it's in the budget. So, and I'm excited about that, and the guys are excited about that too. Guys and gals on the mow crew are excited about that, and because and I know the people that those go by their office windows are going to be excited about that too. So, the only other thing I wanted to cover was just where we sit with the Carbondale Recreation and Community Center. For 13 years, we had an average cost recovery of about 62%, fees to charges and expenditures. So cost recovery in 21 was budgeted for only 21%. I just wanted to let you know where we sit in this year's budget. So we're looking at bringing back some programming. We're looking at not yet renting out the facility. We're going to wait a little bit, as far as birthday parties and quinceañeras and we need to have programming that is controllable is kind of the way we look at it. So programming that is registration based, waiver based, teacher based, not a lot of just drop in free for all programming yet. We hope the kids are going to get vaccinated. We hope more and more people get vaccinated. Then I think that programming can start to come back. But for next year, we are budgeted at a 44% cost recovery. So we're hoping our numbers are right, where it's a kind of a slow opening, slow programming, slow membership rates. Just we're not going to get back to those previous numbers for a little bit here. I just wanted to share that philosophy with you, really. So,
Eric, do you have a sense of where we are year to date with cost recovery?
No, I sorry, I don't, but I can get you that number for sure. But
just trying to put it in perspective to see if 44% is more like this year or what, but it's okay.
Yeah, actually, I got the budget right here. We can just kind of see where we're sitting.
It's okay. We don't know.
Okay.
I'm just curious.
It's definitely been a slow reopening, and I can definitely share that. A lot of our programming, as far as fitness programming, you know, a lot of those were included in memberships. And so our membership, you know, numbers are down for sure. A lot of our instructors of those programmings have not yet decided to return. So Margaret's has been recruiting instructors to start teaching more classes. So we're and our programming is slowly coming back. You know, we're going to run youth basketball. We're running climbing classes. We're running basketball skill camps right now, and we'll be running our youth basketball program league up and down the valley. So, but it's also quite difficult because you have different rules in Pickens County, Garfield County, the Eagle County, which is the league, right? So it will still be a challenge as far as the different rules and different gyms and how to abide by them. So, yeah.
Well, thanks, Eric.
Any questions? Does have any?
Thanks for that overview. On the Crystal River restoration and the Fishing is Fun grant and the ADA access, I know we've talked about that for a couple of years, and I always just want us to get that going. So I see that it's the grant only partially funds it. I understand that, but and I know that in the next segment we're going to talk about a big expenditure related to that project from Public Works and Water. But what's the status of the ADA access down to that public parcel there?
So they were writing grants feverishly, you know, to see if they could get it fully funded. It's the 404 Army Corps of Engineer permitting was finished. And so that kind of gave them a green light to then go after some bigger grants. You know, the Colorado Water Conservation Board grant, they went after, also a Colorado River District grant they were going after and if those grants were, you know, fully accepted, the project would have been fully funded. We ran into some timing issues on that. Some of those had some deadlines that were quite rapid here and needed to get construction happening, you know, soon. And they ran into an issue with the whitefish population and the spawning area of the whitefish on that stretch of the Crystal with the Colorado Parks and Wildlife.
Okay.
And so that actually stopped one of those grants from continuing in this grant cycle. So that the Colorado Parks and Wildlife had a very short window of allowable construction time for the whitefish population there, the spawning time. And so it totally changed the entire construction schedule.
Are we trying to time the construction of the ADA accessible ramp along with the in-stream and all the other things so that we don't put up this nice concrete ramp and then drive all over it or something? Is that the idea?
That's definitely one of the concerns of because there's a lot of upland work that needs to be done on that side of the river, and that would be the access point. Yeah.
So we don't have a timeline on that yet?
No, but there is, what we're talking about now is getting that portion of the project started, you know, this spring.
The ADA accessibility part, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Because we're close to being, you know, fully funded for that.
Okay.
And so that is the next conversation we're having. And when, you know, and also, you know, how, you know, where do we go from here? Is a small 6-week window of construction would mean it'd be a 5-6 year project. And to mobilize everything five times, you know, it doesn't make much sense. Okay. But it's you know, it's moving forward. I mean, those conversations are happening with all the partners and stakeholders. So.
I keep asking because I think it's just when I look back at our old comp plan and went back through it as we were getting going on this comp plan, one of the things says is like celebrate the rivers and improve public access to public river access points. And we haven't really done much on that since that comp plan. And I feel like this is one thing we can do, as well as the ADA fishing access. I just think that that's such a cool thing, and people just don't know that that's a public river access. So I really look forward to seeing that get done as soon as we can. But thanks for the update.
Yeah, you bet. And we'll keep you updated on that. It's a lot of moving, a lot of balls in the air on that one for sure. But it's nice. It's not dead in the water, it's moving forward. So with some bumps in the road. But
Eric, I didn't see it in your summary here, but is the Conservancy still a driver in part of this project, or?
yeah.
They are?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I did write them a letter of support for a grant that they had applied for, and I'm not sure, I didn't get any follow-up on that one.
Yeah, that was probably the Colorado River District grant. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, they're a major driver. There's, it's a great project, and it's super comprehensive, and that's part of its difficulty too. It's many different parts need to all happen in conjunction with the other parts. So, but it is a great project, and it's going to get done. I mean, there's enough study behind it, enough good things will come out of it that I'm super optimistic about seeing it come to fruition. So
Yeah, there seems to still be a statewide focus on this project as well as a demo project,
Yep.
right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, that should help with the funding.
Thanks, Eric. Have a
You
good
bet.
night, and thanks for the great update and all the work.
You bet. Thank you, guys.
All right. Is our Public Works Director here? Oh, he's right over there.
Put on his other hat.
Now we're getting to the sexy stuff
Oh.
like tires.
I need a 5-minute break before we approach this.
We're going to adjourn for 5 minutes and come back. Bad idea for me to
Just get into tire mode. Back of the napkin, 23.5%.
Thank you.
How you doing, Kathy?
Good, Ben, how are you doing?
Good. You just had a little vacation or something?
Yeah, I went to Vermont and Virginia
Oh,
to see family. I haven't seen my family in 2 years.
it's a beautiful time to be out there, right?
Yeah.
Was it like peak colors and everything?
Pretty much. It's-
Awesome.
Yeah, it got better every day.
I've never done the New England colors.
They're very pretty. Virginia was just green. I mean, nothing was changing there.
Right. It's too far south.
But, so yeah, I had never been to Virginia. My husband's sister lives there.
Did you go anywhere fun like Monticello or any of that historic?
We
stuff?
went to Jamestown, and we went to the Museum of Fine Arts. The weather wasn't great.
Is Jamestown the one where they've like recreated all the colonial stuff? Or- Yeah, I've never done that. I've heard that's really cool though.
Yeah, it was. The museum part is really cool. The museum is just full of stuff. Amazing.
Yeah.
But and then we went to the Edgar Allan Poe Museum.
Oh, that's cool.
Where was
It's
that?
like this big in Richmond, Virginia.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so that was kind of hokey.
And which was the other one?
What's that?
Which was, you were talking about another museum?
We went to the Fine Art Virginia.
Oh, VMFA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ansel Adams had an exhibit there. He had like 95 photographs, which
They've got an amazing collection.
yeah, they had a good stuff.
You got to the shore?
Yeah, we went to Virginia Beach, which I would never ever go back to. but-
I've never heard anything great about
Oh, that's nasty.
Oh,
There's like, so the military is there, and like they take off like every 2 minutes. So you're hearing these jets just screeching overhead. Like, I'm not kidding. They just take off, and they all eat lunch like 12 to 1. So it's really quiet. And then they come right back out again. So that was not good. But it was good to see family.
As you got away for a little while.
Now,
Yeah.
whose family is in the Virginia area?
What's that?
Whose family is in the?
Oh,
Vir-
my husband's sister lives there.
Oh, okay.
She's a hospitalist at the UC,
University of Virginia
UCV.
Commonwealth.
Yeah, yeah, big hospital, huge.
Oh, God. And she must have been, with COVID, she must have been super stressed.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
So explain to me, a hospitalist.
Yeah, I never
What's
knew
it
what
they
that
do?
was, but a hospitalist is like trying to get you out of there. You know, like they kind of coordinate on how you're progressing and like their goal is to get you out.
Okay. Because I had one of those when I was in Vail.
Yeah, it's a new thing.
I didn't know that that was the stated goal.
Yeah,
Their job is to get you out of the
pretty
hospital.
much, I think, yeah. I think it is. I mean,
Okay, back to tires.
yeah. Oh boy.
All right. We'll bring the meeting back to order. Hopefully Heather's with us again. And take it away, Kevin.
So we're really not going to talk about tires unless obviously you want to.
Is your mic on?
It's your desire.
Is your mic on, Kevin?
Yes, I think so. Can you hear me, Heather?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
So I'm not going to regurgitate a lot of what's in this memo. Happy to talk about whatever you guys have questions about or want to chat about, but there are a few things, board priorities, sidewalk maintenance, as indicated, did move up to $50,000. You'll see next week that we also bumped the trail maintenance as well by about $10,000. So kind of to go along with that priority of mobility. Maybe we can jump in a little bit to since we just got done talking about the Crystal project. You know, there's a lot of money in the budget for that project. That's accounting for potential grants. To Eric's point, I do believe, and I'll freely admit he and Mark have been the leads on this versus me, but I do think we'll be able to get some of the work done on the ramps, the fishing access. We will also get the work on the Weaver Head Gate done. We've already ordered the head gate, and that's part of ditch maintenance. It's not part of a river restoration project, so there shouldn't be any problem getting that in place, and that'll then tie into some of the work we did this past year with the data loggers in different places on the Weaver ditch. So not to jump around too much, but $950,000 is a pretty substantial piece of this budget. Understanding that the town's portion of that from town funds is in the $225,000 range. The rest is grant funding.
And that's all from our portion of it would be all from the water wastewater enterprise fund. Is that right?
For the in-stream work.
For the head gate.
And the head gate.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that. A couple other things that you see in here, we'll talk about again next week in the CIP, is the mini excavator that's going to be shared between parks, public works, and utilities. It's kind of replacing the loader that we talked about last week. That's also included in here with the additional snow removal expense. And then a commuter van that's also shared between the general fund and the utility funds, just based up on the makeup of the employees that will be using it. The increased snow removal cost is a best guess at this point. It's based on real numbers, but it's projecting how many storms are we going to have and how many days will we need folks. So don't be alarmed by that. My guess is that should come in under budget unless we just have a crazy snow year. And I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but snow is what snow is. We need to get rid of it regardless of kind of what's in the budget, so.
Can I just ask a quick question there, Kevin? So you said last time that the plan is to basically contract that work out. Is that right? Instead of buying a new
Correct.
vehicle of whatever type.
And maybe to give some perspective to that, Ben, I kind of characterize it as like trading a mini excavator for a loader. But we have costs that have been in past years' budgets that'll be offset by the purchase of that mini X, particularly in the cemetery budget and the water wastewater budget. Because you think about housing getting more dense, utilities are getting more dense too, and you can't take a backhoe hardly anywhere in our right of way without worrying about hitting them, where the smaller equipment can kind of get in there. So, we've been renting mini X's all these years to do work we needed to do with the mini X. And it just seemed like the appropriate time to maybe make that switch because of all the different departments that benefit from having that piece of equipment. You can't dig graves with a loader.
And my only question with the snow removal is just that once we outsource it, we're not gonna have any uncertainty around. They'll be ready. We'll be their first customer on those big snow days. We're not gonna hear from the public, oh my God, you guys outsourced the snow removal and it all went to hell.
We shouldn't, because that function will happen at the snow dump. So what we might hear.
So we're still gonna be doing our own plowing.
We're doing our own plowing, and the loader that we retained is the one that runs the snow blower.
Okay, great. Thank
So
you. for
This
that
is for
clarification.
bucking snow in the snow dump.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yep. Another big piece of the budgets in both water and wastewater are the ARPA funds that we're proposing to use for cybersecurity. Seems like every few weeks we get more news of another utility system being hacked into, and I think the timing is perfect on this. I don't know if there's anything else that jumped out at you that you wanted to chat about, had questions about. And my intent is not to gloss over these budgets because I know they're a huge piece of the overall budget in general, but I also don't want to take up too much of your time.
And you said, go ahead. I've already.
Oh, no, I was pleased to hear that the Weaver Ditch headgate is online. That's really of interest to the water managers here regionally, as well as the statewide basin water managers, right? And so with that visibility, perhaps that can help secure some of these other grants that are still kind of on hold. If there's a project that you can point to that everybody's been waiting for a couple of years to come to fruition, right? So that's exciting to me. And it does have a secondary effect on the in-stream flows too. That would help with, the public access part of it, right? And the public use and, just generally the restoration of the crystal in that 3/4 mile section. So I'm glad to hear that that part of it is reaching the finish line.
Couple of things with that. I don't know that I would characterize this as changing some of the issues with in-stream flows because we just don't know what we don't know yet.
Right.
And even though we're going to install the head gate this next year, doesn't mean that it'll be automated this next year. We're still gathering data on the ebbs and flows during the day, because it's gonna have to have an algorithm almost to operate it, because it takes so long for a change you make at the head gate to make its way through the system. I mean, if you think about when we turn the head gates on, it takes half a day to get water all the way through the system. So we're gonna have to collect data to see what those peaks and valleys are during the day, and then try to anticipate those with the operation of the head gate. So again, I think it's a great project and I think it has a lot of potential. But I don't want to sell this as it's going to keep more water in the river, because we just don't know that. And also, it's not going to be automated at the end of the year, but it will have the ability to be automated once we get that all figured out.
With the SCADA, right?
Yep.
And then there's still a gap in what happens at night. So wasn't that one of the challenges, is that whatever happens in the evening isn't monitored as closely as what happens during the day with the flows?
If we're monitoring it with staff, I would agree. The instrumentation that we put in the ditches last year collects data all the time.
Okay, good.
And
Thank you.
that's what we have to look at, is how are those fluctuating? And then, for example, if you have excess push water, when do you have that gate lower it so you get rid of that? And if you have a dip where you're not getting enough water to the end of the ditch, when does that gate need to come up
Mhm.
to kind of balance out the system? Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
It's like setting a programmable thermostat on radiant heat system.
Yep.
Sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
And that's, tell me, Kevin, if we're gonna talk about it on the capital improvements plan. But the roundabout, the, industry way, potential roundabout, I thought, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, I remember you talking about putting money, I think, in this year's budget, 2021, to start some general engineering and say, we're not just gonna keep holding that one 5 years out, we're gonna start working toward it. So I don't know if we got any work done on that this year. I don't know if we need to start budgeting for that, but I just didn't see it in here, and it's been on my mind as we all see all the development and traffic on 133.
So the answer is twofold. We will talk about it more detail next week.
Okay.
But just so you know, we did start design work on that and have been working on that throughout the year. And the CIP will identify kind of costs and projected timelines for that. And we can talk about that, if it's a higher priority of the board, do we move it up, move it back?
Okay, great. I'll wait till next week. Thanks.
But it just, since we're talking about, there is money in the CIP for design. It's just, right?
For this year,
For the,
yes,
For 2021, but
Yep.
nothing else for 2022.
correct.
So we're gonna design it and then have those designs and then look at when we're gonna
Yeah.
do it.
We're not going to get to the full design
Right.
phase, and we can talk about that if the board wants to put some money in next year for a full design. I mean, what we're looking at right now is conceptual. It's trying to get the general geometrics to work. It's looking at what are the property impacts of doing that. So we would not be ready to go build that next year.
right. But that's, I'm glad you bring that up. And I think we do want to talk about that, whether or not to prioritize it or not. Because would we, let's just talk about it next week when we talk about CIP. It's okay. So,
That's all I have.
okay. Anything else for Kevin? All right. Nice job. Thanks, Kevin.
You bet.
So next week we have, what are the other budget topics? CIP? What else?
That's the main.
That's the main one.
Yep.
And then we're going to be we'll have a dedicated discussion on community policing, Chief Wilson, bunch of miscellaneous stuff. I don't know what else. Just looked at it this morning, but
We'll have the municipal visor agreement on there related to the aquatics facility and the bond issue.
Stage waiver fee, little things.
Yes,
yeah.
stage waiver, and then there's some proposed updates that are coming from the Park and Rec Commission to the town code.
Yeah. So nothing major, but fair amount of regular business. Okay. Anything else before we adjourn? Kevin, anything from you, Kathy?
We'll see
Okay.
you all on Friday, right?
Well, hopefully tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, yeah.
Yeah, tomorrow night is 6 to 8:30 at the Callaway Room at the Third Street Center. And then our first interview starts at 8 a.m. on Friday. So if you could be there a little bit before, so, because we don't have a lot of time.
No.
And we'll get going.
So it's Friday here.
Yes, and lunch will be served here for
Okay.
folks. After you guys are done interviewing, there'll be some community panelists and staff panelists that'll join you for lunch and kind of do a debrief while we're eating. And then after lunch, you guys will go into deliberations.
Okay.
So the whole day is set up as an executive session from 8 a.m. till, I did it till 4. I don't think you'll need till 4, but I did till 4.
Okay. Thank you. We are adjourned. Thanks, Heather.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Heather, if we go have a drink, you wanna zoom in?
Yeah, right? Nah, I keep having to turn the camera off to blow my nose, so I don't do that. See you, everybody.
You're gonna
Good
email
night.
us something about questions so that we know what to prepare.